Hey there, and welcome to U Talk. We connect with extraordinary people across Canada and ask them about their stories, passions, and experiences. I'm your host, Ryan Funk. From October to January, there are many observed festivities. Diwali, Dio De Los Muertos, Hanukkah, Christmas, Ōmisoka, Kwanzaa. I haven't heard much about Kwanzaa, so I reached out to the Canadian Kwanzaa Association to find out more about this practice, which was established back in the 1960s.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Ryan. It's an honor to be able to speak to you and to be able to speak to the country and to the world through Zoom. So thank you for the invitation. The name is DeWitt Lee III, and I'm co-founder of the Canadian Kwanzaa Association.
I remember looking online and I saw, first Kwanzaa celebration in Canada back in 2019. How about you tell me a little bit about that, the process and, the significance of having that launch?
Well, it certainly has been celebrated prior to that date. Around 93, I think, is when it found its way into the homes, into the lives of Canadians. There's not a whole lot of great record keeping. I mean, the internet, wasn't truly birthed yet. So, there's not a lot of that you can find. I mean, that's one thing in our history that we definitely need to do a better job in so that we could celebrate those that came before us. So, if there's anything that we do from an Afrocentric principle is always recognize our ancestors, recognize those that have come before us, and we stand on the shoulders of those before us, whether we know them or not, whether there's, a digital footprint of them or not. We know that they were there. We know we didn't get here by accident or on our own, our own doing. So we always pay tribute to those who've come before us. But it is the first time that we've had this municipality in Canada, to my recollection, recognize it, and so that's an important step that me personally, I like to do because it sort of allows the greater community to embrace it and accept it. There's a lot of hesitancy to embrace it. It does come during a very congested period of our lives, right? Right after Christmas. There's a whole lot of Christmas lag where people are just trying to get over the fact that they just made it through another Christmas. So to jumpstart another holiday and a 7-day long one, takes a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of commitment. But the community, so getting the government to recognize it, I think, is an important step to solidifying it and making it recognized. And I know I had one of the highlights of my life was to be able to take a proclamation from Toronto and a proclamation from Brampton and present it to the founder himself, Dr. Karenga, in Buffalo, New York, a few years ago. So I'm on stage in front of, my beloved community here in Buffalo. So, so we were able to kind of go 360 and present it to him and show him that, what he created is growing and is now being recognized by government communities around Canada.
During this kind of November, December period, there are a lot of holidays and festivals from various different cultures, because here in Canada, we don't really hear much about it. I know for myself, the only experience or knowledge I have of Kwanzaa is from Futurama.
Now, you mentioned that before. What is that?
Yeah, so Futurama is a cartoon. It's by Matt Groening, the creator of Simpsons, and they have these seasonal robot characters that represent different holidays. They have the Hanukkah bot, Santa bot, and they have the Kwanzaa bot. And that's been my really only experience hearing about Kwanzaa. So I'm not really familiar with it.
So, wow. So you mean we made it? So we really made it mainstream? Is that what you're telling me? We've officially made it?
Yeah, it's getting there. It's starting.
If we have a bot, so you're saying we have a bot, that means we've officially made it. Well, I didn't know that, but that is good news. Well, Kwanzaa has a great purpose and a great significance, but your question was simply, what is it? Is that
What is it? What is the celebration? What kind of practices? I know there's something to do with candles. What is all the significance of all these things? What?
All right. Well, can you see me fine?
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt our flow. I just want to make sure you see me fine because I'm trying to get back to my Zoom screen here. So I just want to make sure you can see me okay.
Yeah, I can see you great.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. All right. So, well, I would say that first of all, Kwanzaa is a non-denominational. A lot of people like to assign a particular religion. And it's non-denominational. And it truthfully was birthed to affirm the African American really experience and the North American African experience and connected with truthfully our African principles and cultures. And it's a harvest festival, and a harvest festival is something that is celebrated across the continent and across the diaspora. And it's something that, in North America, we sort of, I guess Thanksgiving has kind of taken that place.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I'm very grateful to see how Thanksgiving has returned to a place of truth and reconciliation. And culture, right? But most importantly, truth. And so I think Kwanzaa is, in fact, us reclaiming that traditional experience that we would normally have in our villages and among our communities to be able to celebrate our harvest. But it's also an incredible teaching mechanism and training mechanism. You think about the young people, and as we try to instill in their lives what it means to be Afrocentric, what it means to see yourself as beautiful, what it is to see your community as thriving. And you don't get a lot of those images, and you know what, we can't blame all outside influences on those images. I mean, we personally produce images that deteriorate who we are and distract us from where we should be going. So Kwanzaa is a time for grounding, a time for to reclaim your traditions and to be able to really unite as a community around 7 principles. You mentioned the candles, and those 7 candles represent the 7 days, which also includes the 7 principles, the Nguzo Saba, and it also represents every letter in the word Kwanzaa. So and a lot of these words you're going to hear are all Swahili based. Mm-hmm. Even the word Kwanzaa itself means first fruits. Okay. And so, it's about creating traditions for ourselves. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Hanukkah, right? Hanukkah is a family tradition. Like families sit around and they, and they have traditions that are passed on from generation to generation. That's what builds culture. That's what builds identity. So in fact, when you look around to find out where do we have as a Black community, where do we have these habits, and where do we have these traditions that remind us who we are and build us up to who we can be. And so, every one of those candles is a ritual. Every one of those candles represents one of the principles of the Nguzo Saba. And you know what? And then we focus directly, primarily, exclusively on those principles each and every day.
It's non-denominational, and it kind of encompasses North American Afro communities reconnecting with their cultures back in Africa, correct?
That's right. That's right. And and right here as well. Each one of the principles, each one of those candles that are lit, they're done in a very different sequence. It's not from left to right or right to left. It's a very strategic sequence. And each of those candles represents each of those principles, which is, for instance, Umoja, which means unity. You have Kujijakalia. Say that word for me. Go ahead.
Kujijakalia?
Kujijakalia, man.
Kujijakalia. Okay.
Which means self-determination. Yeah, it's a fun one. It's a fun one, which means self-determination. Ujima, okay, which means collective work and responsibility. We have Ujama, which means cooperative economics. Then there's the word Nia, which is purpose, Kumba, which is creativity, and Imani, which is faith. And one of the greatest things about Kwanzaa is that the founder, Dr. Karenga, is still with us. And he's able to still put a annual perspective, a revised annual perspective of what these 7 principles should be, and how we should celebrate them, and how we should explain them and teach them and incorporate them in our lives. So to have, the founder, the source, to be able to continue to sow into, what he feels is a relevant way of interpreting these traditions and these ceremonies is an amazing honor. So, so although people are free to express themselves and celebrate it in their own way, we always turn to the source. We turn to the founder, Dr. Karenga, who is able to, give us his perspective, his annual perspective on it. And so every year is different.
Yeah, that's the anchor point of it. You have this one point of this creator who has this ideology and idea of the celebration, and everyone can like take those ideas and grow it in a means that is, personable to themselves
and to their family, right? And to their families. Absolutely. Because everyone has, whether it's from a Caribbean background or an African background, we all have other things that we bring to the table. And so that's, and there's usually during Kwanzaa, there's an altar, there's a kinara, and there's, the first fruits that are presented, on the mat and things like that. And so, these are all different places where you can add your own to it. We asked the city of Toronto, as Kwanzaa celebrated 50 years, just a couple of years ago, we asked the city of Toronto to change the Toronto sign, the 3D Toronto sign, and to represent each one of the candles on the Kinara. So, and then we built that, and that became our altar. So, in many respects, that may have been the biggest Kinara in all of the world. And everyone was able to bring their first fruits and their, symbols of who they are and where they're from there. And it was a beautiful experience.
With the Canadian Kwanzaa Association, what is it, and what is the hopes with this organization moving forward? You had a municipality recognize Kwanzaa back in 2019. Kind of what are the hopes and steps moving forward for the future of this tradition?
To grow our footprint across Canada, to be able to get more municipalities, supporting it, to be able to be accessible to media outlets like this, for those who would like information, but to be able to truthfully add a Canadian, contribution to it, and that's what I like to see, where, other cities in other countries around the world may say, hey, this is what they're doing in Canada, and let's incorporate that. So, to me, I would like for the Canadian influence to be able to be emerged into what, globally is celebrated, and to be able to, support the arts during this particular time, to be able to, each of the days has a different platform and a different purpose. And we want to be able to use those days to organize the business community, right? Like cooperative economics. So let's have a dialogue about what that means, and let's have a dialogue about what purpose means. So to have as many conversations with the diaspora in Canada, and to look into ourselves introspectively at each of these principles and say, how can we adjust each of our communities to better reflect these principles, and to be able to gear up for a following year, right? So to build some more momentum heading into Black History Month. I think that this is a time where, we come together as a community and we start planning on, what our Black History Month theme will be.
I think it's really important, to highlight and grow Black voices and Black cultures in Canada. I know in Winnipeg and Manitoba, there's not the Black community here isn't very large, and the one that we do have is generally newcomers moving in. Now we don't have many people that have been here for a long period of time, but yeah, you're right. It'd be really cool to see it grow and celebrate and just become part of that multicultural identity that we keep promoting and pushing here in Canada.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, I think I agree with you 100%. I would say that, I know Manitoba, I know Winnipeg. I know there's large pockets of us there. But the culture, these cultural experiences may have not found its way there. And these are the things that brings the community out. Right. Like you may not know how many of us exist until there's a caravana, and then you say, wow, like there's a lot of people there. So it takes big events like this and big rallying calls like this to be able to see the community really come out and form a community. So you may see it in segments and fragments, but until something universal like this, something that really is a magnet and draws people out and comes together, you just really don't get a chance to see that community in its full glory. But I will say that one of the greatest things that we can serve as the Canadian Kwanzaa Association is to be able to help individuals who may be in silos and who may be in pockets where these celebrations haven't reached their communities, that they have someone they can reach out to. That someone's contacted me already, just like you, through the page, and they want to know where they can buy the Kanara, where they can buy things for their homes. And so to be able to direct to them to whether it's physical locations or internet locations, just to help a household, find a way to be able to do it. And so I think, so this year, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing My First Kwanzaa, and it's going to be an online tutorial per se, where we'll be guiding families through, the 7 days, through the ritual, and almost a how-to, almost a how-to experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm hoping to have that throughout the 7 days, or just, the first day of Kwanzaa. But we want to become, like I said, we want to inspire people's households. We want to inspire government agencies and councils to observe it. And we want to be able to support the artist community that is able to, whether it's drumming, whether it's, selling, dashikis or, jackets like this. And it just gives us an opportunity to express ourselves. So, there are a lot of financial, opportunities to grow the business community. And that's certainly what we want to do.
Having those festivals and celebrations is just so integral to bringing a community together of all backgrounds and cultures. Someone seeing and be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Going in, meeting people, building those friendships. It's so integral, especially in this day and age.
It always is. I mean, community is always, the lifeblood. I mean, it was something that was not allowed, when we go all the way back to, time on plantations as being enslaved, not being able to congregate, not being able to celebrate together, not being able to, to come together. Those are all things that were prohibited, right? And so it is important for us to obviously, use that time to come together, and for our children to come together, and for networking and for building. So there's no question that, the fellowship is important. And it builds, like I said, it builds great momentum leading into the new year. So we definitely look forward to being able to do that again. And I know, we're going to be mostly virtual this year, as many others are, but it does open the door to being able to invite you and other members of the outside world to be able to participate and to witness, the greatness of what Kwanzaa is. So I think, just as much as we would love to not be in a pandemic, and we also understand that there are, some positives to it, which is, which we have to make the most of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, talking with different organizations who have had to really adjust and rethink their whole system in terms of dealing with things virtually, they now have this new perspective like, oh, now we've figured out all these tools and tricks to offer a virtual experience. We can then have a more combined hybrid model moving in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not hybrid, it's hybrid or die. So you definitely want to, adapt and die. So you definitely want to use all the tools and all the resources available, and keep the traditional way of doing things, but also fuse it with the new technology, and that reaches a younger demographic, right? That allows like I said, for a global village to be able to come together. And so we're excited about virtual Kwanzaa. We're excited about we like all the different pieces to it. And so I invite your community to find to find us. So we have multiple social media pages. Kwanzaa in Canada. You found us on Facebook, the Canadian Kwanzaa Association, but also you can find us on virtual Kwanzaa. That's also the pages that we manage.
For someone who's maybe hearing about this for the first time and getting their feet wet in terms of Kwanzaa, what would you like them to walk away with when hearing about this and learning a little bit about this, this part of Afro culture?
Well, that you're welcome. That you're welcome to contribute. You're welcome to join. That there are so many important principles and pillars that Kwanzaa consists of. That there's something in there for everyone, right? And there's something in there for everyone in your household, right? There's so many different activities. There's so much online from workbooks and music. I mean, YouTube is full of Kwanzaa celebrations and Kwanzaa virtual presentations. That the founder, Dr. Karenga, is still here, and his wise words are still on the internet. You can go very far back. So anyone who is just looking for the first time to bring Kwanzaa to their community, we want them to reach out to us. We have a toolkit, and we have all the support they need, from reaching out to your local legislators, your local committee members, to reaching out to the business community and asking them, will you support Kwanzaa this year? We have signs that stores can put up in their stores. So we have graphics and things that you can use on your social media to celebrate each and every one of the days of Kwanzaa. So we have a toolkit. If you want to get engaged and you want to learn more about it at the same time and invite your community in, we invite you to be part of our team. And also, like I said, you can go to Kwanzaa in Canada, or go to virtual Kwanzaa on Instagram. You'll see last year that we started an annual award called the 7 Candles of Kwanzaa Awards. And that is for Canadians actually across Canada. So if in each day there's a different, each of the pillars represents a different group of people for the community who celebrated and honored. So, and we go all across Canada, recognizing the people. So, if there's anyone that you'd like to nominate, there's also going to be nomination forms online as well very soon. So
a lot of busy stuff, really, just boots on the ground, kind of building this up.
Yeah, well, you know what? And it starts with building each individual up, right? Each individual is a spark in their community. And we know that, and all it takes is one spark. And so we invite people to be that spark in their community to help light these candles and light this awareness and light and really ignite a community engagement that really just it's very natural. It's very natural, and it's not complicated, it's not difficult, and everyone is welcome to be involved. And I'll be remiss if I don't acknowledge that these 3 colors behind me, these are the 3 colors of the candles on the Kinara, and the black is the middle candle, and then this represents the other 3 candles and the other 3 candles. But these colors come from the declaration in the early 1900s, where an organization called the UNIA ACL, so it stands for the United Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. And it was founded by the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. And what this group of Garveyites, as we refer to them now, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people met up in New York at Madison Square Gardens for a month-long convention during the month of August. We're talking about hundreds of thousands.
That's That would be so cool to see.
1920. Okay, now I need
Yeah.
I need everyone to kind of think about, what the experience was in the U.S. in 1920. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of members of this organization that came together to put together the foundation of a Pan-African global government, and they decided that they wrote our Constitution, they wrote our Declaration of Rights, they wrote they adopted a pledge, they adopted a national anthem, and every race has a flag. And there was a song in the 1920s, early 1900s that says, now listen, this is pretty offensive, and you can still find this on YouTube. And it said, every race has a flag but the coon. And it was played on the radio. And so what this organization, the UNIA, decided to do was to create a flag. And so this flag represents the red for the sacrifice of our ancestors. The black represents the melanin, the skin of all people of African descent, to remind them that it's not a badge of shame, but a sign of a noble, mighty race. And the green represents Mother Africa. And so it's all about reclaiming Africa. And Kwanzaa is all about returning to our roots. Like this here is a symbol. We have lots of symbols in Africa during Kwanzaa and during our everyday life. And this is the Sankofa bird. And as you see with the Sankofa bird, its neck is extending backwards, and it stands for go back and fetch it, go back and get it. And so we're all about going back and getting the things taken from us. And our African identity was one of the things stripped from us, as well as our responsibility to Africa. And the whole world is in Africa except Black people. So like everyone's making money because that's where all the resources are. That's where the diamonds is, and the oil is, and the gold is, and so Canada's in there, right? Canada's there, in a very prominent, dominant way. China's there, prominent, dominant way. They know that's where the resources are. But the people, the children of that continent, eyes are, everywhere but on the richest continent in the world. So, it's all about reminding people that Africa is still our responsibility. Africa is still our home. And, the last thing we want to do, and so we need to prepare, just like we prepare to get to heaven, and those who believe like myself, we prepare to get to a world in heaven, and you don't just wake up one day and you're ready for heaven. It takes preparation for to live a heavenly lifestyle. You have to live heavenly here if you want to be comfortable and even accepted in heaven. So, it's important to rediscover that love for Africa before you get to Africa. Those African principles and practices before you get to Africa, so that when you do get there, you belong. So that's what it's all about.
Starting out in the 1920s, like that was a completely different world. But even then, the Black community is still struggling with systemic oppression, racism. Like we see it in the United States with the Black Lives Matter movement. We're seeing that in Canada. And yeah, reclaiming that culture is so important with just colonialization, capitalism, and imperialism.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Those are all, those are all sort of textbook definitions of evil. Those are all ways to describe evil, right? And so, unless you talk about what really is wrong, you'll never get the right prognosis. You'll never get the right medicine. So if you keep calling it things which are acceptable and everyone knows what you're talking about, but you're going to keep diagnosing it, you're going to keep prescribing the wrong medicine because you keep saying things that ain't really, you keep kind of bouncing around the idea, but it's basically evil, right? It's basically, the most evil institutions that we've ever had to deal with. And, the fact that, the people of African descent have been victimized by it. It is a burden, and it is difficult, and it's painful. But we are fighting a good fight, and the line is drawn in the sand, and everyone's going to have to make a decision. What side of good and evil are you going to be on, right? And if you're going to once you identify it as pure evil, like then you treat it differently, and you understand that evil is a spiritual space, and you talk, like, look, Ghostbusters. You watch Ghostbusters. I see all.
Of course, yeah. You can tell what kind of stuff I'm into.
In Ghostbusters, okay, when it was time to catch a ghost, they were not using AK-47s, right? They were using weapons that would work on ghosts. Okay. And so when we talk about these things, we're talking about ghosts, man. We're talking about demons, we're talking about ghosts, we're talking about devils, that's what we're talking about. Okay. And AK-47s ain't gonna work, right? So we gotta have the right weaponry to if we're really gonna fix it. But it's a personal decision that everyone has to make. And it's a tough fight. Look, it's tough being Black, but it's got to be tough to not like people who are Black. That's got to suck too, right? That's got to suck.
Well,
right?
just having that hate in your heart for a group of people, like,
bro, that's gotta suck, right? And it's got to be a burden, and the fact that you give that, you pass it on to your children, as Kente Claus, right? I have, if you go on my Instagram, Kente Claus, Kente Claus, you'll see pictures of me and children of all walks of life. And, one of my favorite kids is this little white girl that, her family follows Kente Claus wherever he is. And, she's the sweetest. Like, she hugs me, and you can just tell she just loves her Kente Claus. And it's like, there's obviously, she doesn't not like Black people. Right. Like, I'm the most African Claus in the business. So there's no secret that I'm Black man. Right. I don't wear a fake beard. I mean, this is it. So it's just some little glasses. That's it. It doesn't hide the fact that I'm Black.
Yeah.
But she still embraces, she still embraces, she still loves. So it's clearly, you're not born like that. Right. It's something that your environment creates. And, I challenge you, man. I challenge you in your community. Your peer group, to say, look, man, this thing is destroying who we are as human, right? This is interfering with natural human interaction, and it's actually the dumbest thing in the world, right? Like, it's really just, there's no basis to it. There's no there's no reasoning behind it. It's just the silliest thing in the world. And it generates such hate, and such animosity and such division. And it spills over into other communities, right? So it is something that has impacted even how Black people engage each other. And so all we can do is control ourselves and, in our circle of influence. And so what we're looking to do is we're looking to help, little Black boys and little Black girls to love themselves, to love where they come from, to even love this struggle, because it has made us, listen, there is no comic book with a greater hero than Black people, right? Like, you look at Martin Luther King, you look at the Honorable Martin Luther Garvey, you look at Harriet Tubman, you look at Nelson Mandela, right? You look at Jackie Robinson, there are no superhero that has done more for mankind, right? So it's something to be very proud of. And the fact that we've done it all through love means, shows that we have a connection to heaven. We have a connection to God that's so profound, because we could love someone that hates us, right? I mean, so so we use this time as a teaching tool, but it's like, what principles have been working for other communities where they were able to grow and succeed? And it's unity, it's cooperative economics, it's purpose, it's faith, it's all these important things that we have to rebuild in ourselves. And that's what we use Kwanzaa to do.
Yeah, and hopefully through conversations like this and more awareness of this practice and celebration, we'll inspire people to bring it up and grow these communities.
Sure thing, brother. Sure thing.
Awesome.
So well, this is how we do it. This is how we end. So Kwanzaa, we have a closing, and Kwanzaa, and it's called Harambe. Okay.
Okay.
It's called we pull together, right?
All right.
And it's a physical thing. All right. Now we're gonna do it.
Okay.
It's Haram. So first of all, say Harambe.
Harambe.
Okay, Harambe, and that's pulled together. Now the physical thing is to go up and bring down as one. Yeah. That's very enthusiastic. I like how you did it. You did like you meant it. But you're gonna have to do it now 7 times. Now the last one is you hold it. So it's not so first 1 through 6 is Harambe. Harambe.
Okay. Harambe. Harambe.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
So what you can do to make life easy for both of us, I'm going to say Harambe, you count.
Okay.
Okay. So you just, so I'll be going, we'll both do this, but you
Okay.
count, I say Harambe. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Now, when we get to number 7, okay. We don't
Number
have
7.
to say number 7 because we know it's 7.
Mhm.
So you have to just hold out Harambe for about 3 seconds with me. Okay.
Got it.
All right, let's go. Harambe.
1,
Harambe.
2,
Harambe.
3,
Harambe.
4,
Harambe.
5,
Harambe.
6.
Harambe.
Harambe!
Good work.
Enjoying the content from You Multicultural? Why don't you subscribe to stay up to date with everything that we're doing? If you have any stories you want us to talk about or communities we should highlight, leave a comment down below or reach out to us over social media. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.